Afternoon everybody, welcome back to the channel. Evening everybody, just got the Claydon out here. As a student, and we're treating this as a learning experience, so we're actually putting a cover crop in here. It's the field that didn't have a cover crop last year, and the idea is, because we didn't know what its status was going to be, we didn't blow anything in with the Cunero. There's quite a lot of straw on the top, so to get better seed soil contact, we're drilling it with the Claydon, also to help it move a little bit. So yes, drilling with the cover crops with the Claydon. Ferociously expensive, not what we normally do, but it'll at least give this ground some cover through the winter. Good morning everybody, welcome back to the channel. Sunday morning, and I'm in a relatively small field. It's about 5 hectares, but it's just stopping here because this particular field has been put on special measures. So historically we've had trouble with it. Seems to have a little bit of a higher clay content than the surrounding fields. It could be a bit of clay cap, it could be that, but it's the outside of it is surrounded by woodland, suffers from a bit of shading. I think deer damage is quite considerable. So we've had a dig around in the past. There is a compaction layer on the top headland, but that's been taken care of last year. Still, it doesn't seem to respond very well to flexi or midwinter drilling. We've had a couple of poor establishments from that method. So, and also we don't think it likes animal grazing, whether the surface seems to be compacted. In the top corner it's a bit close to some buildings, so the shepherd likes to use this field, but we're going to try and ban him this year, so see if that sorts the problem out. So far we've had a couple of stubble rakes and we've moved the surface with the carrier, so not very deep, but I would say a couple of inches. As you can see, there is a lot of wood residue on the top. Now we're trying this product this year, which is wood shred. So there's a lot of bark basically. You do get the occasional piece of wood. This would be the larger end. Say something like this is more consistent. I'm not really worried about something like that, and that is going to take some time to break down, but this, it's got a large surface area. Something fibrous like this, I think is actually, I would say, pretty good really. It's got a high surface area. You expect the fungal activity to get going on that. So as you can see, it doesn't spread very far, so the spreader tracks are pretty close together. Let's go across the field. So also it's minded to say we spun on mustard. This is a straight mustard here. We obviously got some volunteers, got some other, it works out as a mixed species after the volunteers and the mustard and a bit of weed growth. So those were spun on before the cultivations. We then we then carried them in, and more recently the application of wood shred. So what's the thinking behind this? Really, the mustard will establish as a cover crop, provide us with overwinter cover. We are anticipating a spring crop here. There's been lots of debate about whether we change its position in the rotation, but it's got some tricky access. So in this corner there's quite a steep bank leading to the other block, so we tend to have access to the rear, which puts it in with a spring block this year rather than a winter block in front of us. So It's due for spring cropping, probably a spring wheat. The overwinter cover crop, no grazing, bit of surface movement, and the wood shred to try and feed the biology and try and keep the biology going. So that's sort of the strategy for this field, and obviously we'll follow it through, and what will be quite interesting to see how much of this wood shred is still here in the spring when we come back in and establish our spring crop. So thank you very much, onwards and upwards. So this is the fire break, uncultivated land fire break, and then just ploughed fire break, and then here we're crossing over into burnt stubble. So I have seen in the past a lot of comment that people wanted stubble burning coming back in order to control blackgrass, and it was just minded to think we've actually got a very interesting situation here. So next door, the fire break, so same field, we just ploughed in the middle of the fire, we ploughed down the middle, so we've got half the field that hasn't been burnt, half that has. And I just got some footage of the blackgrass establishment in the unburnt area, and I just want to compare that with the burnt area. So in the uncultivated land we have quite a lot of blackgrass emerging here, which is quite interesting. And as you can see, coming down here, that green colour is all blackgrass. And there you have it. So actually there's quite significant blackgrass chit in the burnt area, which kind of makes a mockery of the argument that burning would help us to control blackgrass. But what it looks like to me is that nearly every seed is grown. It's a phenomenal chit, really. Half this field was baled and half of it wasn't before the fire. And I'm quite interested to see whether there's a difference between this side where I'm currently standing, which is baled, and the other side which was not baled, because one thought I had was that the fire wasn't very intense in where the straw had been taken away. There simply wasn't as much fuel. So let's just walk over the other side of the field to the chopped section of the field and see whether the intensity of the fire would have been more because of more fuel, but whether that achieved greater blackgrass control. So we'll just walk over and see what conclusions we can draw. As you can see, there is like a stubble mark here, which for me tends to indicate sort of where the intensity of the fire changed. And for those of you who are saying, oh, it wasn't a properly hot fire, just be reminded the hedge is completely dead on the horizon there, and similarly the hedge is completely black all down that back boundary as well. So here we go, we're walking up to the strip of yellow stubble and we'll have a look on the other side. I would say that these black splodges here indicate chops. Where chopped straw's been burnt, and interestingly there it does quite consistently, if we go over here, there is less blackgrass in the blackened areas than say this one next door. Quite a lot of blackgrass here, for example, very little there, quite a lot there. So the conclusion would be that if you do want to control blackgrass, you've got to have quite an intense fire. And yes, here you can see a bit more intensity in the volunteer oats. So this was an extra oat field. Spring oats, you can see a bit more intensity of the volunteers, tending to indicate for me right on the line of a combine, so it would indicate why we're getting these sort of bit more intense fire. But really, other than the black marks where obviously the fire persisted, very little difference in germination rates. All that I would say is that we've already established that blackgrass germinates with light contact with the soil, and I wonder whether in this situation whereby all surface residue has been burnt off, whether we've got more blackgrass germinating because there's more light hitting the soil, which will ensure that we get a better sterile seed bed, which means then it's cleaner crop. But we'll see. I mean, we're going to get that mark all the way through the year, so we'll be able to mark it and see whether there's any difference going forward.